Okay, another thing we're going to find in our kit is usually a package of specialty grains. And there'll be a bag in here that we're going to use to steep those. And they sent a bag with this kit, but if you don't have one, you can use like pantyhose stockings, or you can buy these bags to use. You could probably just use a strainer or something to dunk them in the pot, if you had something to make sure they didn't spill out or weren't too the holes in your strainer aren't too big where the crushed grain will just fall right through it. But mostly every kit's going to come with some specialty grains, and I'm going to talk about specialty grains here in a second. But I think this particular kit I read, and it was pale chocolate and caramel, and they're just all mixed in a bag. They've already been weighed for you and everything, so that makes everything a little bit simpler there. But as far as specialty grains go, I've got some of the ones out here that you're likely to see the most. They're some of the most common ones. And specialty grains are not used in high percentages. They're kind of what give a lot of flavor. They're not where we get all our fermentability. They're not base grain. They're just different grains that have been kilned or had some special process done to them so that they can help us to give our beer more flavor. And these crystal or caramel malts, which you'll see a lot of times abbreviated C40 or C60 or whatever, they're malted barley that's been mashed and then it's been kilned to a certain degree. And that number that you'll see, the 40, the 120, I've only got down to 40 here to show you, but it goes all the way down to 10, I believe. 10 and 20 are real light. They're not very much color to them. And I think these three, I would say 40, 60, and 120 are the most common. But you'll see that number, and what it refers to is how dark. It's the Lovibond. You'll see a lot of times an L after it, which is a scale that they use to kind of tell how dark grain was kilned. And now they can vary from one brand to another. I mean, for example, a brisk caramel 40 might not be the same as a RAR or other malting companies. I don't know. So they can have a little bit different taste, even though they both say 40. I mean, say for instance, one of them could have been kilned at a lower temperature for a little longer, and the other could be kilned at a higher temperature for a shorter amount of time. So you will get some variances there, but generally you kind of know what you're getting. And these crystal caramel malts, you kind of get a raisiny, a sweet caramely type flavor that varies from light caramel, a little bit sweeter, more fermentable, all the way down to this 120 where you're going to have more of a raisin, almost a burnt caramel type of flavor coming with it. And you just use them in varying amounts, and you can use multiple. You don't have to use just 40 or 60. You can use a little bit of different ones in certain beers. A beer that I like a lot that has quite a bit of caramel malt is Irish Red. It's what really gives it its reddish color, and I like using a lot of this 120 to kind of give it some of that burnt raisiny type of flavor in there. You'll see caramel malts used in all types of beer. That's by far the most common specialty grain, and a lot of people try to get away from it. They think, oh, well, so many beers have caramel. That's because they're great and they taste good and they work. Chocolate malt is malted barley that's been kilned to pretty dark. You can see it's kind of going to have a light cocoa taste to it, almost going into the coffee end of things. It's used in a variety of different beers. I mean, porters, and you'll see it in English bitters and all sorts of different types of beers. Roasted barley, that's real common in stouts. That's just where mostly all of it just gets used in stouts. It's barley that was not malted. It's just regular barley. You can see these whole kernels here that were just nice and plump and look like the day they were picked or harvested, except for they've been kilned until they're just black as sin. Real dark coffee taste to it, real roasty, and just excellent in certain types of beer. Another type of specialty grains, which I only have one of here to show you, is what we call proprietary malts. And they're malts that maybe one particular maltster will make, and it's kind of they use sort of their own process and stuff for it. It's not standardized. I mean, this Victory malt is made by Brewers, and they're the only ones that make it. It gives kind of a bready, real bready, biscuity type of flavor to beer. And there's plenty of others. I mean, Cara Munich is another one that comes to mind. There's a lot of proprietary malts. I mean, you'll just have to experiment with those and kind of learn as you go which ones you like and stuff. And it's ironically, Victory's not really one of my favorites. I do like Cara Munich, but Victory it's not necessarily, it's okay. I don't hate it, but just personal preference. I mean, I'm not telling you don't try it, but there's others. I mean, there's smoked malts and cherry and honey and all sorts of what I would call proprietary. I mean, they're distinct to one particular maltster kind of makes that, but you'll see these ones like Victory where it just has that name. I mean, Brewers makes Victory malt. It's their deal. So it's not like roasted barley where pretty much all of them make a roasted barley or a caramel 40. So just look out for those. I mean, if you see those and you're trying to kind of figure out a substitute for them, well, sometimes it's difficult because they kind of have their own flavor. So you just have to be familiar with them in that respect. Specialty grains, we're usually looking at 15% or 20% of the grain bill or less. I mean, some beers really don't have any specialty grains. I mean, there's beers like, if I were brewing an American light lager, it doesn't have any specialty grains at all. I've brewed other beers. I mean, you'll see pale ales that don't have any. You might even see a Belgian or a Saison or Kolsch. There's all sorts of times where you'll see beers that don't have any or don't have very much specialty grains. So don't be surprised if you see a recipe that really is pretty simple with the specialty grains, because they are out there, and vice versa. You'll see recipes that are real heavy with them, but when you're coming up with your own recipes, just kind of be careful. I mean, you can overdo it, especially like with the roasted barley. I mean, too much of that stuff and you will ruin a beer. It'll be like drinking cold carbonated coffee or something. It gets pretty, it goes from good to bad really quick. Another really dark malt that I didn't mention that I should, but I didn't have any to show you, is Black Patent, which is basically like roasted barley, but it's made from malted barley. But it's roast really dark, black, crumbly, kind of sort of the same flavor profile as roasted barley, not quite. You'll see it a lot in porters. I mean, that's not the only beer, but it's just one where it's kind of famous for being in. So that's really about it for specialty malts. About all I can say about them right now. I mean, I'm sure as time goes by I'll think of something that I forgot to say here. And this should give you a general idea that they're kind of like, my main point here is they're kind of like the spice. You know, if you were making chili and you think of your base grains as being your tomato sauce, tomato paste, well, these would be your chili powder, your paprika, like that you're not putting a whole lot of, but they really do make a big difference at the end of the day. So hopefully this all makes sense to you.